It's all alchemy, it's all power. And what you're taking different contents and you're making form out of it. You must control the market value of what the thing
People
is that you
deserve to have
sell.
love, and people deserve to have
There's
freedom.
14 people want that same slice of pie. How do you get the slice of pie?
So being an artist is not necessarily, you don't have to be a talented artist. It's more.
Well, it's interesting. The question of what is a talented artist is itself interesting. I go to art galleries as part of my process of experiencing art, and I read about art. So I have the language, post-impressionism and realism and surrealism. I know the language of the history of art, and I will look at a piece of art that to me just doesn't seem artistic at all. Maybe it's a red dot on a white canvas. It's conceptual. I don't understand it. And I will have long conversations with the art dealer about why this is art. And that art dealer will have an entire hour-long conversation about why this is a great work of art. And I don't understand that. So there are many, many people who are really talented. What even defines art is not something that anyone really agrees about. If it moves you in some way emotionally, if it drives you in some way, if it excites you in some way, if it touches some part of you emotionally, then it's a powerful thing. And by the way, the experiencing of art is a group process. For instance, the theater is a wonderful form of art because you're in a group and an audience experiencing art. And I remember talking about opera with someone. It was an incredible experience for me. I'm not a big fan of opera. I don't know much about opera, but I met someone who knew about opera. And they mentioned that it was the most complete art form. It had stage design, it had lighting, it had libretto, it had lyrics, music, dance, just so many different elements. So if a person said, I really want to expand that part of my brain to be more expansive, more creative, I would tell them to just go to the opera, even if they're not a big fan of the opera, to just go as an exercise, like doing aerobics as an exercise, or strength building, or yoga, or meditation as an exercise.
In the list of things to become successful, you mentioned passion. Speak more about the concept of having passion.
If a person is doing something that does not really excite them and just makes them money, or gives them some short-term gratification, in the long run they will feel like an empty shell. They will feel unfulfilled. It will create unnecessary struggle in their lives. They will not have a sense that their life has any meaning or they have any legacy to give. It certainly will affect the quality of their social relationships. They'll be hanging out with people who they don't have any connection to just to make more money. So the idea about passion is that if you can think about that thing that you love, it might be painting, photography, dance. I have a passion for film, for instance. I watch a film every night. Some are terrible, some are funny, some are, but they're films. We enjoy them, the structure of them, the plot structure. It's a passion for me. So if you engage consistently in fulfilling a thing that you have a real passion for, something that just makes you feel whole, enlivens you, it's a peak experience to do that thing. And you can do that every day in your life. It will totally transform you. So, of course, some people don't know what their passion is. And so we're going to talk about that more during this short program. But the key is that unless you know what your passion is, you will struggle unnecessarily. That defining your passion in a specific way and acting on that passion daily will, even if you're an obsessive compulsive, you have an addictive personality. I have seen tapping into someone's passion transform people who are drug addicts. And the reason for that is the line between a passion and an addiction is a very, very thin line. I mean, you can say that somebody who watches films all day, or someone who writes all day, or someone who makes films all day. I mean, how is that different than an addict? Except an addict is shooting heroin, drinking alcohol, or having codependent relationships. And a person with a passion is doing something consistently that they must do, they need to do, they have a compulsion to do, but which enlivens them, enlivens the lives of other people, and has a transformational effect on them. So I think that acting on your passion is something that can transform your life in ways that you never even dreamt of. You couldn't conceive of it, you couldn't write it up, you couldn't act on it, you couldn't plan it. All you do is plan on acting on your passion. Now, if a person can't define their passion, then they need to get coached or mentored by someone who can show them how to tap into that.
No matter what you do in life, there's always going to be problems and obstacles that confront us. How can an ordinary person attempt to be successful while dealing with all these challenges?
You know, I would ask the person viewing this presentation to ask themselves the question, how many kinds of problems do you think there are in the world, really? Categories. And most people will say, there must be thousands. I mean, look at the world. Politics, nationalism, religious differences, economic problems, social problems. There must be thousands. Amazingly, there's only four types of problems and obstacles. And I talk about them initially as if they're the same, but they're actually quite different, an obstacle and a problem. The key four things that happens in any of our lives is we either run into circumstances beyond our control. Could be a blizzard, they talk about acts of God, hurricanes, blizzards, earthquakes, tsunamis. There's not much you can do about these things. You can attempt to plan for them, but they happen. So one type of thing is external forces beyond your control. And when I say external forces beyond your control, keep in mind that person in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, when all those houses got washed away, somebody had a rowboat on the roof of their house. And they knew that there was a chance that someday the levees might break, there might be flooding, and they got in their rowboat on the roof of their house. So there's even a way to compensate for external forces that are beyond your control. But for most of us living our lives, things are going to happen we just did not plan on. So external forces beyond your control. The second one is internal forces. And I'm talking about really genetics and biology. If you're really short, and if you're 4'7" and you want to be a basketball player in the NBA, it's going to be hard to do. If you're 7'3" and you want to be a jockey at a racetrack, it's going to be hard to do. So as society expands and our viewpoints of things expand, people are allowed to do things they might not have been able to do before. If there are people who have physical disabilities, they can compete in the Special Olympics or the Paralympics. So there are ways to compensate for internal factors beyond your control, but they're still there nevertheless. So that's the second one. The third one is lack of skill. You're shooting this, you're a skilled filmmaker, and people who are watching the tape, each one of them has a great skill. Maybe they're a checker player, a chess player, they tap dance, they can make a great chocolate pudding. We all have skills. And one of the limitations that cause problems and obstacles for us is that we need to have a skill that we just don't have. And so in that kind of a situation, you can always delegate to another person. But essentially, those are the three key things that really are obstacles. If you don't have a skill, you don't have a skill. If you have an external force beyond your control, that's what you have. If you have a biological or genetic limitation, that's what you have. The fourth factor, and it's the one that's really a problem, not an obstacle, is faulty belief systems. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a statistician, but I would say over 90% of the obstacles and problems that people have in their lives are a direct result of faulty belief systems. And so a person has a belief system, they become attached to this belief system, they become almost addicted to the belief system. And there's some vision they have, some passion they want to act on, some type of success that they want to have. And they absolutely cannot get it. It is impossible for them to get it holding on to the beliefs that they have. So if a person has a strict, rigid belief that they cannot get out of, and it's counterproductive to becoming successful, there's no hope for them. They will struggle unnecessarily in their lives. That's just the way it is. It's sad. I'd say almost pathetic. But 90%, 95%, most people you run into, when you talk to them, they're going to tell you a belief that they have. It could be political, it could be religious, it could be any kind of belief about relationships, and they just make stuff up. When I coach people sometimes on the phone, people will call me up and tell me something on the phone about their obstacles and what the cause is, and I will say to them, you just made that up. And they'll deny it. They'll say, no, I didn't. It's a fact. And I'm, no, it's not a fact. You made that up. And then, of course, it gets a little funny. They may say, I didn't make it up. My father made it up. My mother made it up. My priest, my rabbi, my imam, my relatives. Somebody made it up, and they believed it. Sometimes we have group beliefs where you get a whole tribe of people who believe something, and it's just not true. So one of the things that we need to do if we want to be successful is we need to recognize whether something is external factors beyond our control, internal factors, lack of skill, or just a belief system that just doesn't work. And then they need to get coached or mentored on transcending that belief system. It's not easy. It can be very painful and uncomfortable. We love habit, we love comfort. So it can be really difficult to have to give up a belief system that you've held on to for years. But sometimes it's the only way to transcend the limitations and get some of the success that they want: love, wealth, and freedom.